In the last couple of videos, we have learned how to simplify algebraic expressions, and we have learned how to expand expressions using the distributive property. Now, this video is going to put those two concepts together, and we're going to be simplifying algebraic expressions that have parentheses in them, and that is our essential question: how do you simplify algebraic expressions with parentheses? So how do you do that? Here are the steps for it, and hopefully you notice that most of these steps are pretty familiar. They're almost identical to simplifying algebraic expressions. In fact, these are the 4 steps for simplifying algebraic expressions. The only thing we're adding is a new first step, is to use the distributive property to eliminate the parentheses. Before we can simplify any expression, we have to make sure that the parentheses are all taken care of or eliminated. That way we can combine all of our like terms, because if you have terms in parentheses and you have terms that are outside of parentheses, you can't combine those until the parentheses are eliminated. So the first thing we're going to do is use the distributive property to eliminate the parentheses, then identify all the terms, and then start combining like terms that have the same variable, combining all of our like terms that are constants, and then we'll write the simplified expression. So let's look at these examples. Here, 4 times x plus 3 plus 8. Now we have x plus 3 in parentheses, and that's being multiplied by 4. So we cannot add this 3 and this 8 together, for example, because the 3 is in parentheses, the 8 is outside of parentheses. So there's nothing we can do with those terms in the parentheses and the terms outside of the parentheses. So we have to get rid of the parentheses using the distributive property. So remember, I multiply everything in the parentheses times 4, and 4 times x is 4x, and 4 times 3 is 12. And then the plus 8 will just get tacked on. Now, after that first step, we have an expression that does not contain parentheses, and now we can identify the terms and combine our like terms. So we have 4x, the plus 12, and the plus 8, and these are like terms right here. These are constants. There are no other terms with x's in them, so I'm going to combine these like terms right here. This 4x is just going to get copied down, and the plus 12 plus 8, or positive 12 plus 8, is a positive. So I'm going to do plus 20. So 4x plus 20. And these are not like terms, so I know I'm done. And that is my simplified expression. So we've simplified that expression that had parentheses in it. Next one, 12 plus 6 times 8 minus b. And again, I have terms in parentheses, so I have to get rid of these parentheses. So my 12 is just going to get copied. That's not in parentheses or have anything to do with the parentheses, so that's just going to get copied. Now, when I use the distributive property here, I have to pay attention to that sign in front. This is like a positive 6. So this is a positive 6 that I'm multiplying by everything in the parentheses. So 6 times 8 is a positive 48. So I'm going to write positive 48 or plus 48, and then minus 6 times b, and 6 times b is just 6b. And now my parentheses are gone. So that's going to be one of the things we have to make sure that we do correctly when we're simplifying these expressions, is paying attention to our signs. That's going to be the #1 mistake, is a sign error, where we miss a negative or add a negative where it doesn't belong. Now we've eliminated the parentheses. Now we're looking for like terms. I have no terms with b's in them, but I do have some constants here. And this is 12 plus 48. Those terms belong together. And 12 plus 48 is a positive 60. And then the minus 6b is just going to get copied. And these are not like terms, so I am simplified and done. So not too difficult to simplify these expressions. Just have to be careful and pay attention to the details. Here's one that's a little more complex. It's got a lot more involved in it. I have terms that are in parentheses here. So again, I need to use the distributive property. And again, pay attention to that sign in front of what I'm multiplying. This is a -5 out in front here. So -5 times 4 is -20, plus -5 times 2b is -10b. I'm just going to put that in parentheses to clear that negative up. And then these terms had nothing to do with the parentheses, so I'm just going to copy them. 9b minus 5. And then I would highly, highly recommend that you recopy every term every step. Don't just leave those hanging up there and then try to combine them with what you did after you did the distributive property. Rewrite every step so you've got everything all in a row together so you don't lose track of terms. Now I need to start identifying my like terms. The first ones I want to look for are my terms with variables, and these are like terms right here. These b's. This is a -10b plus 9b, -10b plus 9b. Negative 10 plus 9 is negative 1, so that's negative 1b. And then I have negative 20 minus 5. Again, paying attention to those signs in front. Negative 20 minus 5 is negative 25, so that would be minus 25. So I have negative 1b minus 25, or remember when we have that negative 1 coefficient, it's not necessary. Negative b minus 25, either one of these would be correct. And then we have this one. Now this one is a really difficult example. This is the one that's always going to get middle schoolers because they don't pay attention to that sign in front when they're multiplying. The 9 has nothing to do with parentheses, so I'm going to have to actually get rid of these parentheses by multiplying by, that's like a negative 4 that I'm multiplying. That's how I'm going to treat it when I use the distributive property here. If there is subtraction in front of the distributive property, we have to treat that number outside like a negative number. So this 9 is just going to get copied, and now it's like negative 4 minus n. Negative 4 minus n is negative 4n, so it's going to be minus 4n. And then negative 4 times 5 is negative 20. So that is how that is going to look after I distribute that. And now I'm looking for my like terms. I don't have any n's, so I'm just going to go ahead and recopy that one. Negative 4n, I'm going to pay attention to that sign in front. The sign in front of every term always goes along with it, so don't make that mistake. And then I have 9 plus negative 20. 9 plus negative 20 is like 9 minus 20, and 9 minus 20 is negative 11. So it's going to be minus 11, negative 4n minus 11. And that is my simplified expression. So you can see these do get a little tricky, but you have to pay attention to details and make sure you're not losing track of signs. Here's a couple more that contain some rational numbers besides integers. And we're going to do the same thing, but again, we have to just remember how we handle our fractions and decimals. I'm going to get rid of parentheses by using the distributive property. So 1/2 times 4k, well, 1/2 times 4 is 2. So this is 2k plus 1/2 times 7 is 3.5. And then the minus 2 is just going to get copied. I don't have any terms that have a k in them, so 2k is just going to get copied. And I have my constants here, 3.5 minus 2. And 3.5 minus 2 is 1.5. It's a positive 1.5, so plus 1.5. And again, these are not like terms. So that is a simplified algebraic expression there, 2k plus 1.5. And then here I have some decimal values in there. I have my 8 on the other side of the parentheses, which usually makes people uncomfortable, but we're still going to distribute it the same way we distribute if it was on the other side. So 8 times 2.6 is 20.8 minus 8 times 1.2m is 9.6m. And then my plus 4.5m is just going to get recopied. And now I have like terms here with my m's. Again, I'm going to treat this like a negative 9.6m plus 4.5m, and that's going to be a negative 5.1m. And then this guy right here is just going to get recopied because there are no other constants, and it's a positive 20.8, so it's plus 20.8. And that is my simplified expression because they are not like terms. So simplifying expressions with parentheses, make sure you use the distributive property to get rid of the parentheses first. Always pay attention to the sign in front.